And here are the indigenous peoples to the land coming home, accused of being colonizers. Hey friends, welcome to the Robert Stearns channel. I am happy to be here with my friend Barak Swarttz, and I'm happy for you to get to meet him today. Barak is many things. He is the son, get this, of two rabbis. Your father and your mother were rabbis, or are rabbis. He spent a few years in Israel as a child. Then the family moved back to America, and then he moved back to Israel and made Aliyah about 5 years ago, I think, 2019-ish. He is very enmeshed in the sports world. He has been a trainer to professional basketball players, both here in America and in Israel. His specialty, his gift, his niche is that he trains not just sports figures, but in particular basketball players. Basketball was a passion and is a passion of his, but through that, he started to grow on social media. And I want you to go right now to Other Barak, Otherbarak. It's down there in the link. And I want you to follow him on Instagram and YouTube, I think are your two main platforms. Because what he does, and Barak, what you do, I'll shift to you. I mean, it's just so wonderfully. I mean, you really humanize the story of Israel and the story of the Jewish people. And I have so many, dozens and dozens and dozens of rabbinic friends, right? And I'm so grateful, right? But, if a rabbi's there, and the Mishnah this, and the Talmud that, everything you heard growing up, and you're just like, no, the basketball court is telling me this, right? And it's like a whole other space to bring people into that is, in a sense, a neutral space. It's a space, yes, of athleticism, of play, competition, but friendly competition, and you use that to open up, dialogue. And so it's been awesome to have you here in Buffalo. Barak spoke for us here in Buffalo, and there'll be a link in the comments where you can see his entire story. You shared for about 40 minutes, and the journey was just amazing. You kind of told your story through these photos that you had taken over years. I think the first photo was you and your brother. You were how old?
6.
You were 6. So you had this photo from when you were 6 up to a photo from this past year, and you just said these were these iconic moments. It reminds me of the story of the children of Israel, where they'd come to these moments and they'd build an altar. They'd put down the 12 stones. It's like, this is a moment, we don't want to forget. So, man, I just admire you so much. I hope everybody follows you. But launch wherever you want to launch. I think a lot of the question is, yes, you're the son of rabbis, but you're not coming at any of this from a religious perspective. You're coming at this from just a really human perspective. Tell your story and tell what it is that you want the world to understand and know about Israel.
First of all, it is an honor to be here. It's an honor to be with the whole group speaking this morning. And I said it on social media a little while ago. I was still digesting everything. I was just telling Bryson, special. I got emotional earlier just thinking about it, because I made Aliyah. I moved to Israel, and I lived there as a kid. So I got a very early dose of it during a difficult time, during the second Intifada. And now I'm in my late 20s bringing Israel to the place that I'm from. And my goal is to spread that, which to me is an incredibly large full circle moment for me. And my passions for Israel, I got to give it to them. Go to my parents. The credit goes to them. They made the decision to take my brother and I from the States, going to Israel during a really difficult time. I didn't tell you this part, but we went there in 2001. I was in first grade. The second Intifada already was a thing in Israel. It was so bad. We actually went back in the summer between 2001, 2002, because it was so tense in Jerusalem. And then my parents were crazy enough to say 1 year wasn't enough. Let's go back. So we went back again. And so I really did 2 years there in Israel, which for a 6, 7, and 8-year-old from the greater Boston area to that, I grew really thick skin. Like I saw things and remember things and experience things that none of my counterparts back in the States can wrap their minds around. And yet these experiences, traumatic ones, somehow bound me to Israel. And that is something that I'm still, I don't want to say wrestling with because I don't have any friction with that. I'm still trying to practice gratitude for that because
Wow.
most of the people that I talk to about Israel and I share these moments with them, they don't understand how I ended up going there. After going to school when a car bomb goes off in your street, after understanding what sirens are, how can that bind you to a place? It would probably create dissonance. And yet I'm living there. And I always talk about my parents, and you know that, because where I am today, physically, spiritually, religiously, and emotionally, a lot of it, if not all of it, is a result of how they raised me. And there's no price that I can put on that.
And I'm looking forward in just a couple weeks.
I was just about to, you say it.
I'm in just a couple weeks. I'm going to be meeting Barak's father for the first time at a conference in Washington, D.C. He was here today, and we're in Buffalo right now. And your parents like, where are you? You're like, I'm in Buffalo with this guy, Robert Stearns. And your father looks up this brochure of where he's going to a conference. He's like, I'm going to be with him.
With him.
Yeah, so I'm super excited.
You know, and that's
Bashert, right?
supposed to happen.
So I want to go back for a moment to what you were just saying, because you said something this morning and it was so powerful. And I want you to repeat it. You said, I want to say 3 things.
I'll say it right now.
Yeah, these 3 things, because it's so powerful.
I'm going to say it kind of the way I said it in church this morning, because it's important that there's a little bit of context. The question that Bishop asked me is, what exactly would be my message to the world? Because Israel's so misunderstood. What would I want the world to understand more about Israel? And when I walked into the services this morning and I got the opportunity to turn around and sit down and face the stage and understand this first church beautiful experience that I was seeing, my eyes scanned the entire stage and just beelined to the Israeli flag in the corner. And I started to get emotional in my seat. And at the same time, Ben was up there and everyone is singing and everything, and it was powerful. So when you asked me this question, not only did I include everybody in the church in the answer, I'm going to include all of the viewers as well. That there's a 3-part answer to this. The first is, we are not a colonial project.
And you're saying we, meaning the people of Israel and the lovers of Israel, like all of us who are in this together, right?
All of us who are in this together.
Yeah, right.
We are a comeback story. We are not colonizers or survivors, and we are not a war zone. We are home. And that sums it up for me. And the shlichut, the mission that I'm on right now, is to provide real storytelling and tangible proof, which you saw this morning, that I've brought from Israel, to justify those 3 answers.
And by the way, I don't know where you came up with those, or, are those yours? Those
are mine.
I mean, copyright that, brother. Trademark that. Make a T-shirt, because those are powerful statements. And I really want you to meditate on those, because this is the crux of the issue. How do we live in a time that all around the world right now, the like indigenous people movement is the huge thing, right? Like honor the indigenous peoples and here are the indigenous peoples to the land coming home, accused of being colonizers, accused that Israel, the creation of the state of Israel, was a response to the Holocaust, which, like, excuse me, Theodore Herzl, 1897, half a century before the Holocaust, Jews all around the world are coming home to a place where there has been an uninterrupted Jewish presence for 3,000 years. Yes, there have been times that the Jews have been forced out of the land. There has never been a time where there has not been a remnant in the land. My last book on Nehemiah begins, the opening chapter of Nehemiah starts with, I, Nehemiah, was in the courts of the king, and Hananiah and my brothers came from Jerusalem and Judea, the survivors who were left in the land. Anytime there was a diaspora, there always was a remnant left in the land.
Can I add
please.
something quickly? I'm so glad you said Herzl in 1897. And there's a lot of this rhetoric about the Zionist movement. What is going on in the Middle East, what's going on in Israel is because of Zionism. They don't say that they're anti-Semitic, they say they're anti-Zionist, which means that tells me that you're against Zionism. What's really interesting though, and probably a very inconvenient truth for them, Theodor Herzl, yes, founded this movement of Zionism in the late 1800s. My family, in 1890, during the first Aliyah, were suffering from pogroms in Lithuania. And they left Lithuania. And they ended up 7 generations ago in America. Before Zionism was a thing,
Right.
Jews were discriminated against. There were pogroms. They were being persecuted. And to act like Zionism, it's a card they get to pull to use Zionism as an excuse for what's going on. The same way where if you ask a lot of the people who are radically anti-Israel, and they say this didn't start on October 7th. So I say, when did it? And they say 1948. There's a big issue with that because that means they're using the independence, the Declaration of Independence of Israel as the reason for why everything is going wrong in the Middle East. Yet Jews have been facing persecution, and Christians too, way before 1948. And that's why if we're talking about facts and also family, personal, real, nobody can take that from me. So my ancestors fled persecution in 1890 from Lithuania to come to America.
Well, we could go there for an hour because there's so much there, because not only was it in 1890, but you go to 1948, Jews were facing persecution in what then would have been Palestine from radical Muslims. 38, 28, you can go all the way back, and the attacks that were coming. So that's a whole other program. That's a whole other show.
I just wanted to add.
No, but it's important. And I want to encourage you, go through the videos on my YouTube channel, look at the topics, visit Barak at Other Barak, and get educated. These are core issues for you to really press into and to understand. So, what do you see on the horizon? Please look into your crystal ball, and I mean, how long is this war going to drag on? Listen, as bad as things are, who would have thought that the Abraham Accords would ever have worked? Who would have thought that Saudi Arabia would be at least improving in its, gestures towards Israel? We got a long way to go, but there's
progress.
There's good progress. So there's a lot of signs of hope, and there's a lot of signs of distress at the same time. How do we navigate that?
I'm going to throw you a curveball, and I'm actually somebody who's filled with unpopular opinions, and I have actually been quite historically correct when I talk about the past year and a half. I've been using a term since the beginning of my advocacy online, actually right after the time that I saw your video, where I've been categorizing a very large population of people who have chosen to become experts somehow about the Middle East as overly emotional and underly informed. And
there is a ton of that.
A ton of it. And I'm not going to go down the rabbit hole of how I see that every day. It's pretty self-explanatory. But October 7th and everything that has transpired since, I think about the stock market. And the analogy is, when the stock is up and it's at its peak, there's a lot of turbulence, there's a lot of movement, there's a lot of buying, there's a lot of selling. It's very volatile. And that's what we're seeing right now. And so people's emotions are very high. Historically, through evolution, and even through despair, we see eventually that curve simmers down. And I have been saying, and I'm going to say it now in March, early April, I've been saying since the 7th, 8th of October, the far majority of these overly emotional and underly informed people who think that they care, but they really don't, because before the 7th of October, not a word about Israel-Palestine came out of their mouth. These overly emotional and underly informed people will eventually stop being overly emotional. It is inevitable for it to happen because they don't come from a place of integrity and real care. If you come from a place of integrity and real care,
Wow.
you will continue to care. But they will dip off. And I know this because the activists, the ones who are looking for clout, they won't continue talking about Israel and Palestine. I will and you will, because we care. And so where I'm going with this is, what do I see on the horizon? I see the overly emotional and underly informed status continuing to play itself out, probably for a year or two. I really believe that. But even if I were to go back and play my old videos from October, I said in October 2023, in 4 to 5 years, it's not going to be the same. You're not going to have, I could be wrong historically, it could be historically incorrect, and that's fine. But I said I'm a man of unpopular opinions. I don't think you're going to see the same protests at college. I don't think you're going to see the same incitements of violence against Jewish communities. Will it still happen? Of course. Is anti-Semitism going away? Of course not. But we in the Jewish and non-Jewish world, the allies of Am Yisrael, many of us have felt a rise and peak of all of this. But history does show Germany is an incredible ally to Israel. Who would have ever thought? In 1947, in 1947, during the UN partition, one of the countries that voted in favor of the UN partition was South Africa. Today, South Africa couldn't care less about the state of Israel. Things change. And after what happened in the 30s and 40s with the Holocaust, who would have expected Germany to be a friend of Israel? And so I see through history.
Well, was it Argentina, the president, right now, right? Like, I mean, this election in Argentina shifted everything. And yeah, so that's happening in real time.
It is happening. Yeah. It is happening, and it's real. And I like to understand history to understand what potentially will happen in the future. So, as far as that's what I think. And to be honest with you, if you don't really care about something, you have a temporary shelf life of how long you can attempt to care. You're not just going to continue. You're going to move on. People have already started to move on. That's what I think is going to happen.
That is brilliantly said. I mean, that is a brilliant insight. That's 2 in 1 program. I'm telling you, you're doing great. Those 3 sayings and that insight that really, all these, all of a sudden caring people who are, where were they before October? They're rising to a moment. They're seizing a moment. They're not living in the reality of this, and that's not you. You're here because you're living in the reality of this. You're learning. You're committing yourself to get educated. You're committing yourself to understanding what is a situation that is simultaneously very complex and very simple. The history that it's complicated. It's complex. It's also very simple. The Jews live in their ancient homeland and they're not going anywhere. That's it. They're not trying to invade Egypt. They're not trying to take over Jordan. They're trying to live as Jews in their land. And if their neighbors want an end to war, stop attacking them.
Period.
It's not a difficult thing. Since November 29th, 1947, May 14th, 1948, Israel has had a war about every 3 years. Every 4 years, an Arab neighbor, a Muslim neighbor attacks and loses, and we're back at it. It's really pretty simple.
It's very simple.
The Jewish state is not going anywhere. Accept that, and let's build a new Middle East together.
Yeah.
And let's find peace for the Palestinians and prosperity for them. And let's find normalization for Jordan and for Syria. My God, who would have thought Assad would have been, dethroned like that, right? In a moment, the guy was gone. Overnight. So anyway, you are doing a good job. You're here, you're learning, you're growing. I want to invite you to join me in Israel. We're going soon. I don't know when this airs, but anytime it airs, we're going soon because we're always going. And you're going to go to Barak's Zionist basketball clinic. You're going to go and we're going to add that to our Holy Land tour. Come and get basketball training in Israel. But listen, thank you for dropping by today. Thank you, brother. You're awesome.
Thank you.
Appreciate you so much.
Of course.
And we'll see you later. Keep working and praying for the peace of Jerusalem.